and welcome back to Adaptation, the ultimate vlog for film adaptations and the original material they're based on. I'm Jessica Dunn, and I have to admit that I'm a bit of a history buff. But then there are quite a few of us here on the adaptation team. And for those of you viewers who might remember a vlog that we did about a month ago, you know very well that there are some historical adaptations that pain anyone who really loves history. I can't even bear to think about those travesties. And then on the other hand, there are some like the ones on this week's list, best historical adaptations, that are like a balm to the soul. So let's get started and provide a little bit of healing for those of us who have longer memories than we would like. The first title on our list should be familiar to any adaptation fans who's listened to our podcast within the last 6 months, because it was a feature, I think in January? February? One of those two? Hidden Figures. I loved it. This book was based on the book by Margot Lee Shetterly, which in turn told the true stories of female African-American mathematicians who each played significant roles in the early years of the US space program. In our podcast, we raved about it, and for good reason. The plotline is fascinating and inspirational, and the acting is stellar. See what I did there? I didn't even realize that. And when it comes to the historical aspects of it, we acknowledge that the filmmakers took some liberties with the timeline and time frame in order to make it fit within a reasonable length for a feature-length film. But they did it well. The stories of these women resonate on the screen just as much as they did on the page, and it's an important story to tell. Another adaptation that made it to this list didn't really have to worry as much about compressing the timeline because it was a television series. The Crown, a Netflix original television series following the events leading up to Queen Elizabeth II's reign, and also following the political intrigues and romances that took place in the early years of her rule. It's a very accurate and elegant portrayal of events. But imagine the pressure of this. Let's consider this scenario. Queen Elizabeth II is still the reigning monarch of England. Can you imagine the pressure that the showrunners must have been under? I mean, what if she'd hated it? Let's move on to the next adaptation on our list. Another, yet slightly older television series, Little House on the Prairie from the 1970s. Based on the autobiographical book series of the same name, Little House on the Prairie follows the lives and adventures of Laura Ingalls Wilder and her family in the American Midwest. The first series aired in 1974, and it continued for 9 seasons, and you can see why. It's kind of a classic. I mean, in our family, we would watch it ad nauseum. Don't get me wrong, it was cheesy at times, but overall, it was always a good watch on a weekday, and had that feel-good feel of a well-made family drama, with just a little bit of historical life thrown in. And speaking of life, Call the Midwife has a lot of it. It's another show based on a true story, or more accurately, it's based on the true memoirs of Jennifer Jenny Worth, who's the featured main character in the first few seasons. Jenny, who is newly trained as a nurse and midwife, leaves a comfortable home to become a midwife in London's East End, and is challenged by the harsh living conditions that she sees in the slums. But she's also inspired by the stories of the mothers who live there. The series teems with life and birth, and the stories of Jenny and the other midwives, including the nuns that they live with at Nanata's house, draw you into 1950s London. It's everything that a historical drama could hope to be, and quite a bit more. So if there's anything that we've noticed from this list, it's that a lot of times the best historical dramas don't actually cover the big events in history. For instance, Andre, a 1994 film that just happened to be one of Jen's favorites growing up, was the simple story of a family that rescues and adopts a seal, which in turn adopts them. My heart melts every time I see this film, particularly when, spoiler alert, the family releases Andre back into the wild, and he continues to migrate back to visit every year. So cute. And I mean, there's also the part where Aunt Andre goes, yeah, I like that part too. The last title on our list is a bit loose in true historical accuracy, because Balto is an animated film made for children. Once you get past the talking animals and the other thrills that they throw in to appeal to the younger audience, you have, at heart, a film telling the not very well-known story of the dog sled team that took on a harrowing, dangerous journey across wilderness in order to bring medicine to a suffering community in Alaska. And if you ever get lost in Central Park, as I've done a few times, you may come across the statue honoring this dog sled team, depicting Balto in his husky glory. It's a great story, and all the better because it's true. So there we have it. 6 adaptations that show how the big screen can bring history to life again. But maybe you disagree with any of our choices, or maybe you think we've left out a really good historical adaptation. If so, don't be shy. Make sure to leave a comment in the comment section below. Also, if you like what we have to say, please check out our podcast on iTunes, and we also have social media pages on Twitter, Facebook, and Tumblr. Thanks for tuning in this week, and until next time, just remember, everyday life can be considered history. Make every day memorable. Ugh, I sound like a fortune cookie.